Returning to Curitiba at the end of November had never been part of my plans. Thanksgiving wasn't a typical date on our calendar, but ever since I married Bruno, and with that also inherited his family's Americanized traditions, I started including the holiday in my annual routine. I used to complain, of course. Who, after all, celebrates an imported holiday when Christmas is just around the corner? But Bruno said it was important to keep alive the memory of the years he had lived in the United States with his mother. Family is family, he insisted, and I tried to be diplomatic. But that year, there had been something strange in the air from the start. Not just my usual discomfort with the manufactured holiday, but a tension difficult to name, which vibrated in Bruno's gestures whenever he mentioned his colleague Hannah, or when he locked himself in his phone and went out to answer calls in the hallway, or when he hugged me in a quick, distracted way, like someone fulfilling an automatic obligation. Anyway, I drove to my mother-in-law's house that cold morning. The sky was a pearl gray that promised rain, and the streets had that peculiar late spring smell. The car was full of groceries, ingredients for the traditional dinner, hostess gifts, and even a wine that Bruno always said went well with the holiday. I parked, got out with the bags, and noticed something strange even before touching the doorknob. The house was silent. Not an ordinary silence, but a silence that seemed to occupy space, like a sleeping animal inside the house. I opened the door with my copy of the key, and then I saw. The living room was empty. The lights off, the table without arrangements, without a tablecloth, without the typical pre-party chaos. Only one detail stood out. Bruno's stepfather, Valdir, sat in the old rocking chair near the window, staring at the garden as if observing a world that no longer belonged to him. I put the bags on the floor. "Valdir," I called, hesitantly. He slowly turned his face. He seemed smaller than I remembered, but at the same time, he exuded a curious firmness. "Ah, you've arrived." His voice was hoarse, but clear. I walked to the dining table, which was empty except for an envelope. I recognized Bruno's handwriting immediately. I opened it. "Darling, change of plans. We decided to go on a cruise with Hannah and the others. We thought it best to take Mom too. She needed to relax. Can you look after Valdir for me? He can't be alone. You're amazing. Thanks for understanding. I'll be back on Monday. Kiss, Bruno." There was no ship cabin number, no additional explanation, nothing. Indignation rose through my chest like a sudden heat. "They traveled," I murmured. "Since Tuesday," Valdir completed, emotionlessly. "Don't let that note fool you. They don't care about me at all." I took a deep breath. My mind tried to process the betrayal implicit in the message. Not only had they left me behind with someone Bruno claimed was in a fragile state, but they had gone with Hannah. Colleague. My vision darkened at the edges. "Want to sit down?" Valdir asked. And then I realized my hands were trembling. After a few minutes of controlled breathing, I picked up my phone to try and understand the situation. Maybe there was a post, a clue. And of course there was. The first photo was of Hannah, tanned, wearing an expensive bikini and holding a glass of champagne. The caption, "Well-deserved vacation, #new beginnings." Bruno appeared partially in the background, out of focus, smiling. I scrolled through a few more photos. In one of them, Bruno and Hannah toasted together, their bodies touching, the intimacy clear as day. I felt my heart pound, like a hand knocking on a door from inside my chest. "Did you see what you needed to see?" Valdir asked, without raising his voice. I didn't answer. I kept scrolling down the feed. In another image, my mother-in-law posed next to Hannah on the ship's deck. "Beautiful family," the caption read. Family. There wasn't a single mention of me. And then the final blow, the bank notification. Withdrawal of our $27,000, joint account. Almost all our savings. My stomach churned. Valdir observed everything in silence, until he said, "They do this to people they think will never react." I looked at him, surprised. "It's not just you," he continued. "They've been doing this to me for years." His statement dropped between us like a stone. "Aren't you sick?" I asked, remembering everything Bruno said. He let out a hoarse laugh. "Sick, yes. Incapacitated, no. What your husband told you is just the convenient version." My knees weakened. "We have a lot to talk about, Jade," he said with an unsettling calm. "But first, let's have dinner." I ran my hand over my face. "There's nothing in the fridge," I added. Valdir raised an eyebrow. "Precisely." On the way back from the market that night, my head was boiling. The image of Bruno with Hannah repeated in my mind like a scratched film. I parked and entered the house, carrying too many bags for someone who had no physical or emotional obligation to prepare anything. I found Valdir sitting at the table, this time surrounded by papers. There seemed to be so many that they formed a wall. "What is this?" I asked. He tapped the documents with his finger. "You deserve to know what's really going on. Sit down." I obeyed, more out of exhaustion than curiosity. "Over the course of 10 years, he began, I was a victim of financial, emotional, and medical neglect from them. I had appointments canceled without my consent, medications denied because they were expensive, small but constant transfers to accounts I never authorized, and above all, a lot of disregard. I opened one of the folders. There were receipts, medical reports, records of purchases made with his card, dates, and amounts. "Why show me this?" I asked, shocked. Valdir took a deep breath. "Because I'm dying, Jade." I felt my throat close. Pancreatic cancer. Advanced stage. 2 months, if I'm lucky. The words spread inside me like spilled ink. "Do they know?" I whispered. "I doubt they care," he replied, with controlled bitterness. "But that doesn't matter. I don't need them. What I need is someone who sees. Someone who confirms I haven't gone crazy. Someone who was here. And I am that person," I realized. "Exactly." Valdir then pushed a white envelope towards me. "This is my true inheritance." I opened it expecting to find a simple will. I wasn't prepared for what was inside. Accounts, investments, properties, securities, a meticulously organized fortune. Much more than anyone would imagine. 15 million, I murmured, unable to believe it. "Money I never left in their hands," Valdir explained, "and which now I leave to you." My head spun. "To me?" "To you, and to institutions that truly care for the elderly. But most of it is yours, for a simple reason. You are here." He looked at my face, waiting for a reaction. "And because I want someone who isn't rotten to turn this into something decent after I'm gone." That's how our alliance began. The next 4 days passed in a blur, but I remember every detail, every smell, every look. Valdir showed me where he kept more documents. He revealed manipulations the family had made with small doses over the years, minor transgressions that alone seemed trivial, but together formed a cruel pattern. I spent the night reorganizing evidence. I created digital folders, took photos of everything, cataloged items. Valdir watched in silence, sometimes offering tea, sometimes telling small stories from his life, stories the family never bothered to listen to. Valdir asked to record a video will. "I want my voice recorded," he said. "I want there to be no doubt that everything I did was conscious." The recording took over an hour. He explained everything, calmly, without hatred, just truth. When he finished, he was exhausted, and so was I. The next day, Valdir woke up weak. The disease was taking its toll. I stayed by his side, reading excerpts from books he liked. We made soup together. He insisted on walking to the garden. It was the quietest day, and perhaps the most significant. He held my hand for hours. "Thank you," he said a few times, but with such truth that it felt like an embrace. Valdir passed away at dusk. The golden light streamed through the window exactly as he exhaled his last breath. I cried with my head resting on his shoulder. When the clock struck noon on Monday, I heard the elevator's noise, followed by loud, carefree laughter. The door burst open, bringing the smell of sunscreen and imported perfume. Bruno entered first, tanned, smiling, with Hannah clinging to his side. My mother-in-law came behind, carrying duty-free bags. The laughter ceased when they saw me. "Jade?" Bruno frowned. "Why are you still here?" The silent rage I had held for 4 days boiled in my stomach. "Because Valdir passed away," I replied. The shock was immediate. Hannah put her hand to her mouth. My mother-in-law's eyes widened. "What? How did you let him?" "He wasn't alone," I interrupted, firmly. "You were." I led them to the living room. On the table were all the organized folders, the video will, and a sealed letter. "What is this?" demanded Bruno. "The evidence," I replied, "of everything you did." My mother-in-law paled, and then I opened the letter. Valdir described with devastating clarity years of mistreatment, neglect, and financial manipulation, and concluded by leaving the inheritance entirely to me. When I finished reading, no one dared to speak. Bruno found his voice first. "This is absurd," he yelled. "You manipulated him. You must have gotten into his head while we were away." I pointed at the TV. "It's all recorded. You can watch it." Hannah took a few steps back, as if she wanted to disappear. My mother-in-law tried to articulate something, but her mouth trembled. "And what's more," I added, "the house isn't yours. It belongs to Valdir's holding company. You have 30 minutes to pack your things and leave." The ensuing chaos was predictable. Crying, screaming, theatrical indignation. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could sway my decision. They left, and the house finally found peace. Before handing the key to the lawyer responsible for the inventory, I walked to the living room. The old rocking chair was there, motionless. I ran my hand over the backrest. "We did it, Valdir," I murmured, and I felt for the first time in days the silence return to its rightful place, not as an absence of life, but as a clean, serene space. I left the house, knowing that I carried with me not only an unexpected inheritance, but the responsibility to honor someone who, even at the end, chose to trust me. And this possibility of justice, silent, complete, irrevocable, was worth more than anything Bruno or his family could have given me. Now tell me, have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to deceive you? Tell me in the comments. And if you liked this story, leave a like to help the channel and subscribe to receive more videos like this. See you next time.